We're coming to you from our KWAME studios live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144, and around the world at myjoyonline.com. Now, the lead suspect in the murder of Legon Law lecturer Professor BENNEH has died at the police hospital in Accra on Saturday. We'll get our court correspondent Joseph Akable to give us more details, especially what the police is saying. But before that, let's find out what the legal implications are for the state's case. Joining us is lawyer Martin Pegbu. Thank you so much for your time here this morning. So we understand there are two suspects on the run. The lead suspect who's passed has confessed to committing the crime. There's one person currently in custody, but generally, what does his death mean for the state's case?
Okay, so it all depends on the quality of the evidence that the police has. If the quality is good, okay, extremely good, then notwithstanding the death of the suspect, the police will still be able to mount their case, okay, against the rest of the surviving suspects. So let's say with that confession, if it's very, very clear, it's a case where he planned the statutory act and everything about it, it has very clear and good, what do you call it, pieces of evidence that can be verified independently of the suspect's statement, then it's good. It's all about the evidence.
Okay, so we know in some of these cases there usually is cross-examination, right? So what happens in this case?
Good. So it means that with his death, as I stated earlier, automatically, of course, he's out of the case. But based on what he said in the confession statement, if he mentions other people who are witnesses or who would be able to corroborate what he stated, the state will go in for those people and confront them with the statement, that's the confession statement. So if those people admit or the they were witnesses, then that means that these people would then be used for the state. And so the charge will be able to stand. So in the same way, if the confession is not that good, it doesn't mean any other person, or it doesn't give independent piece of evidence that can be corroborated, and it means that with his death, it's going to give a very skeptical to the prosecution.
Sorry, lawyer, we're struggling to hear you. The line keeps breaking. If it's possible to reposition yourself so we hear you better. So if I get you right, you're saying that it all comes down to the evidence.
That is correct. That is correct.
So in this case where one person has been arrested and there are two others on the run, and like you mentioned, the lead suspect who is passed on has a statement. If that statement is not detailed enough, and the suspects, for example, deny the allegations, what next? Fresh evidence needs to be gathered? The police needs to start looking for suspects again?
That is correct. So it means that, yes, with the test, the police will reassess the whole case.
Okay.
They have to reassess it to see whether with the evidence that is gathered and with the death of the suspect, Womba, can they use the evidence that they have against the only person in custody. And most especially, there's even this rule that generally, for conspiracy, you need two people. Okay? Yes. But when one dies and the evidence, you can use the evidence against the surviving person. So we still come back to the same question. What is the quality of the evidence that the police have? And for now, you and I are not in a position to be able to comment on that because we are not seized with that evidence. So all of it, time will tell.
All right. So is there a possibility of changing the charge in this case because of the bit of conspiracy you just explained?
Excellent. So if the evidence is not good for the conspiracy, that is to say with the death of Womba, if they don't have good evidence to charge as many suspects with conspiracy, they will have to drop conspiracy and go ahead with the murder charge alone. Yes. So the murder charge alone, and that is good enough. So we have conspiracy to murder, then we have murder. So if the other person who would have helped to establish the conspiracy is dead, then you leave out the conspiracy and proceed with the substantive offense, which is the murder itself.
All right. Before I let you go, I mean, does any similar case come to mind where a lead suspect died? Does anything readily come to mind? Have we ever recorded a case like this?
Not this, but that the person has absconded. So most often it happens that the co-conspirator has absconded.
Okay.
So in all of this, then the courts look at the evidence. If it's good, the remaining person is convicted. If it's not good, they leave it out and go to the substantive.
Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate your legal thoughts on this. Lawyer Martin Kpebu sharing what the legal implications of Nana Womba's death will be to this case involving Professor BENNEH's murder. And like I mentioned earlier, if you're just joining the program, the lead suspect in the Professor BENNEH murder case died over the weekend. My colleague, court correspondent Joseph Akable, joins us to give us more details of what the police has been saying led to his death. Joseph, what do we know?
And so, Bennett, the information we have does indicate that he's been unwell for some time now. And he was actually at the intensive care unit of the police hospital and was put on oxygen, but unfortunately he died on Saturday. And so that is the information that the police sources have confirmed to us. But the concern that you raised with a legal practitioner is what we are all looking forward to, because he is being named as a prime suspect. It's based on his confession that led to the arrest of a second suspect, with the police saying that they are on a manhunt for two others. And so with his death, it means that currently you have just one person standing before the courts on the charges of conspiracy to murder and murder. And so we look forward to the next date when we expect the states to give some direction as to what will happen going forward. And again, once the person is dead, they obviously cannot be prosecuted. And so that a decision will have to be taken on that, as well as what will be happening to the substantive case against the other accused person and the two others who are also set to be on the run.
Thank you very much. Joseph Akable is our court correspondent, furnishing us with some details on what led to the death of the lead suspect in the Professor BENNEH case. Like you mentioned, we understand the suspect is to reappear, has been remanded and is to reappear. That's the second one on the 25th of October, we understand. So we'll keep our eyes on the story and furnish you with details. Away from that, JoyNews investigations have uncovered how some licensed cocoa buying companies and farmer society groups illegally rent their certification license for as high as 1 million cedis to wealthy businesses under the Cocoa Sustainability Initiative. Farmers are paid extra premium for growing certified cocoa. However, in many cocoa growing areas across Ghana, there's a blatant abuse of the system, giving rise to a situation where some produce buying companies do not pay the appropriate premium and also pass regular cocoa as certified ones. These underhand dealings make the farmer poorer, defeating the purpose of the Cocoa Sustainability Program. There's more in our latest Hotline documentary, Robin the Poor, produced by investigative journalist Kwetina. It will air later this evening, but here are some excerpts.
It's another shady tale of exploitation of cocoa farmers.
Premium no
It's a web of shady deals involving officials of certification bodies, licensed cocoa companies, and cocoa interest groups.
Everything that we need to get a certificate is needed.
We will take you on a journey to expose the crooks who are compromising the integrity of the International Cocoa Sustainability Program.
The actual work that we are going to do will just be like 10%, so 90% I'll forge it.
It may appear as a simple case of poor implementation of the Cocoa Certification Program. However, this is a complex, dubious, deliberate practice of buying and bagging conventional cocoa as certified cocoa. In this edition of Hotline, my colleague Kwetina digs into the rot that has characterized the Cocoa Certification Program. He goes in search of hard evidence in major cocoa growing areas in the Ashanti, Western, Eastern, and Central regions, and shows how officials of certification bodies act as auditors and shadow staff to aid in the acquisition of certificates under million-dollar mercy deals with key stakeholders in the cocoa sector, facilitating the entire process.
The cocoa sustainability programs are meant to improve on the livelihoods of the cocoa farmers. They are also meant to address the challenges we face in the supply chain, and then also to address the consumption and the processing aspect of it.
In the early 2000s, key players in the cocoa sector and consumers were concerned about the future of cocoa production. These concerns were about poor living standards of cocoa growers, the use of chemicals for cultivation of cocoa, and child labor on the farms. The Cocoa Sustainability Program was introduced so that cocoa farmers will be paid a price premium for producing high-grade cocoa under internationally approved certification standards. However, some licensed buying companies and farmer societies have compromised the entire process. Today, conventional cocoa is sold as high-grade certified cocoa. Wealthy individuals and organizations can also buy or rent the licenses of other cocoa buying companies. And then there is a whimsical, chaotic, and unregulated payment of premiums where cocoa farmers are paid a pittance for the certified cocoa. That's why we go undercover to expose those crooks robbing the poor.
That airs later tonight at 8:30 p.m. You do want to make a date with us. Now, former Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, KWAME OWUSU, has been explaining his decision for turning down government appointment as the board chairman of the GRA. He spoke in an exclusive interview with Mama V OWUSU Abuaje.
And we heard you were going to be board chair of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Did you ever step there?
No.
What happened?
Well, I think that you started making noise. I was asked by the president to leave Ghana Maritime, so I resigned. I attended the resignation.
Did he give you reasons?
Just so that I could be appointed to go and chair the Revenue Authority.
So contrary to public opinion, you were not sacked from Ghana Maritime?
Absolutely not. If people are sacked for what they have done wrong, the president is very principled. He will come out and say the person should be prosecuted, this and that. He gave me a further appointment. How can I be sacked in the midst of your talk? And the man who does appoint me again, it's not by default, because he knows who and what I am, and he knows my capabilities.
Okay, so he didn't push you to resign because of all the commentary at the time?
But I have just told you that if he wants me to resign, he won't do even immediate appointment. He will tell you, go and hide for a year or two before he comes. He immediately did the appointment.
So he was clearly
he was clear, he never
clearly
said,
happy with you.
But you can make the judgment. I don't have to, it is not about whether happy or not happy.
I'm wondering why that appointment couldn't hold then as board chair of the GRA.
Well, when you started making noise, like any other, some people started, but the president was never panicked.
CSOs, there was a number of CSOs, anti-corruption organizations that petitioned.
Yes, I don't know where they petitioned to. They did all the petition at the Council of State. It didn't work because there is no element of all the things I've told you. They are common sense people. But when you talk about the anti-corruption, I remember in the after the appointment, I remember the yellow boy. What do you call it?
Yellow boy?
Yeah, Franklin Kujo.
Why do you call him the yellow boy?
That's how I call him. That's how I know him to be. He comes to my restaurant, I see, I said, that's the yellow boy. Now, When he makes a comments for somebody appointed to jail, say, oh, he's going to go have a lot of air conditioning. See, a lot of people you listen to, you call them anti-corruption. This guy, he's a land economy. He went to do land economy in tech. They finish, they never work in their life to impact on people, but they become policymakers because some of these organizations, that's how they live. And some of them, you go to see even how they live, you begin to wonder, if they don't have a paycheck, how do you live like this? But that is not what I am trying to see. They seem to know everything. And they will say, oh, KWAME also did that, KWAME also did that. And I challenge him the last time. I want him to come and see what he has done. See, people even take a job that they can do. When we are going to appoint people to go and stabilize the Ghana cedi currency, and they invite him, oh, he's gallery to put his name there. You're a land economy. Neither have you had a business. We do export. When dollar comes in, 2.5% goes to the bank. He doesn't even have a pain to see what people do. So there is no, you say, oh, I am sorry. I want to say anti, but he'll join. People, you are double standard. I had so much of you talking, including them, if you do. So on September 18, 2019, I wrote to the president to withdraw. He never called me and said, no. I said the thing, Mr. Harry was sick, the former chairman. He left the same February. So the place was going to be empty. So he quickly tell me, hand over and come so that I can get you to go and do this job for me. And he made the appointment. So it tells you that there is no corruptible issue in his mind because he was given the document after they went through investigations and the rest. And when I saw people were talking and talking, it's not like I need a job. It is a public service. A chairman is not a paid job. So I wrote to him on September 18 and said, Mr. President, Ghana is bigger than any one person. And the economy has to move on, especially when we talk about revenue shortfalls and the rest. So please, I have been involved in other activity business, so let somebody else do it. When time comes in the future, I have to tell government that I have time, I will come back and do that. So that is what it was. And then by the 21st or so, they put in Professor Day.
So you turned down the appointment?
Yes, this is a copy of the letter.
Because of what you term the noise?
The noise making...
If they were just noises, then why would you take it that serious?
You don't want to go into an organization where people have not been satisfied. Now, I believe after I talked to you, if any media person hasn't, that will be quiet. But it looks like I say you didn't know KWAME OWUSU until you heard Ghana Maritime. Today you are hearing the issues that we are talking about. And then you draw your conclusion. So I felt that I needed time for the public to know what the issues are.
We're going to focus on COVID-19, but let me just make a quick correction. Earlier, I said KWAME OWUSU was former Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Forgive me, he was for the Ghana Maritime Authority. Now, President Akufo-Addo is urging Ghanaians to adhere to COVID-19 safety protocols to mitigate chances of a second wave. Now, he says, although the country has made significant success against the virus, people must observe the protocols. In his 18th address to the nation, the president said the country's recovery rate now stands at 98.5%.
As of Friday, 16th October, the number of active cases has declined further to 398, with 46,664 persons fully recovered from the virus, putting our recovery rate at 98.5%. 13 more deaths have occurred, bringing the total number of deaths tragically to 310, out of a total number of 510,074 persons tested. The rate of death, 0.5%, continues to remain very low. When you take a close look at the measures some other countries are having to take, including imposing nighttime curfews and partial lockdowns, declaring state of emergencies, limiting the numbers of people permitted at public gatherings, and mandatorily fining persons for not wearing masks, all in the bid to contain the second wave of the virus, we in Ghana have been spared all these developments and restrictions. We must, thus, be doing something right. In fact, Our favorable situation at the moment is thanks to the effectiveness of government policies, the cooperation of you, the Ghanaian people, and ultimately to the grace of God. The science and data tells us that the trajectory of the virus in Ghana mirrors that of an epidemic with reduced disease activity. Our daily infection rates are no longer in the hundreds as they were some time back. Presently, they are in the tens, averaging 25 new cases per day in the course of last week. This, in spite of our successes, I'd like to reiterate that this virus remains something of a mystery, and we should always rather err on the side of caution and continue to observe the protocols that have brought us to where we are.
During his address, the president also reviewed some restrictions like the number of people who can attend conferences and seminars. He also announced the return of football games in 2 weeks, but conspicuously missing was his mention of the positive cases confirmed in the Black Stars camp. We'll have some analysis on that later when George Addo Jr. joins me later during the sports segment. But let's hear the president on this.
The strategic, controlled, progressive, safe easing of restrictions continues, with its overarching objective being to restore our lives and economy back to normal. Football, the passion of the nation, will return in 2 weeks. Private burials, still with a maximum of 100 persons, are being performed. And the limit on the numbers of persons who can attend conferences, workshops, and award events has been lifted, subject to the strict adherence of COVID-19 protocols.
I'll be talking shortly to Dr. Amuesi on what this means for us in terms of our recovery and death rates. Do stay with us here on News Desk. Thank you for staying on News Desk with me, BENNEH Abubeidulansa. On Sunday, that's yesterday, the president delivered his 18th address to the nation after we first recorded COVID-19. And among others, he encouraged Ghanaians to continue adhering to safety protocols. He did talk about our recovery and death rates and mentioned that it was good. The signs there were good. But earlier, I spoke to Dr. John Amuesi, who is a lecturer at the Global Health Department, School of Public Health at KNUST, and leader, Global Health and Infectious Diseases Research Group at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research. He first answered the question on what our recovery and death rates really mean.
I think it's really important to put all these things into perspective, and I may begin to sound like a broken record because these are things that I've shared over and over again. There is no doubt that the picture is better than it used to be. I think this is without question. One may argue that how good the picture is may be difficult to determine, yet we can say with some amount of confidence that it is good. I say this because the arguments that perhaps our testing has gone low, which is very true nonetheless, would reduce our ability to detect cases is a valid argument, because the less you are testing, the less you will see. But I've always maintained, and I see again, that when people fall sick, you can't hide that. And ultimately, when people die, you cannot hide that. So being able to say that our death rates have reduced considerably is absolutely what it is. Pointing out that our ICUs and other hospital beds are not filling up is absolutely true. Being able to point out our rate of spread, however, is rather tricky, because you will realize that while rate of spread may be increasing, it may not be directly correlated with the levels of severe disease and levels of death. One may argue that, well, if people are not getting sick and people are not dying, then who cares? I mean, if the virus is there, let it be there, and everything is hunky-dory. So if you look at it at the spectrum as the ultimate outcomes, death, hospitalization, doing great. Spread of the disease, can't really tell. But by and large, things seem to be working well for Ghana. And this is not isolated to Ghana alone. In fact, things seem to be panning out much better for Africa.
Doc, let me just make reference to a statement made by the president, if you will indulge me. When you take a close look at the measures some other countries are having to take, including imposing nighttime curfews and partial lockdowns, declaring state of emergencies, limiting the numbers of people permitted at public gatherings, and mandatory fining for persons not wearing masks, all in a bid to contain a second wave of the virus. We in Ghana have been spared all these developments and restrictions. We must thus be doing something right. Doc, at the time in Europe and in America, when they were recording or experiencing their first wave, we had barely started recording numbers. Is it not premature to assume that we aren't experiencing a second wave, especially looking at the timelines within which they experienced the first wave and when we experienced ours?
I will just read a little bit more of what the president said, because he said something really interesting beyond saying we must be doing something right. I quote, he said, in fact, our of you, the Ghanaian, and ultimately to the grace of God. And then he went on further and said something, in fact, he used the word, the virus remains a mystery. And it's very important to take these words holistically, that we're doing something right, and then the additional statements that he made. Because as I pointed out, the picture that we're seeing in Ghana is not isolated only to the country, but it's also being seen or is panning out across the entire Africa in the same way, which means that beyond doing something right, there's some intrinsic properties of the continent that are allowing us to have a more favorable outcome. I'm not saying that we are not doing anything right, and I'm also not saying that we are doing well because of the right things that we have done. And this needs to be made very clear. And I think the president invariably said exactly the same thing. The question of a second wave is a very interesting one, because a second wave was seen in China, but it was a very attenuated second wave. The second wave has been seen in Europe and in North America. Now, we need to understand the genesis of this second wave in Europe and in North America. You will realize that things started to get better just before the summer break in the global north. And the Europeans and the Americans took full advantage of this. We're going on their holidays, we're partying, we're doing everything like all is well. It is therefore not surprising at all that you see this massive rebound. And normally when the rebound starts, it starts very slowly and then it picks up momentum very quickly. Interestingly, they themselves warned of this and anticipated, but they were willing to take the gamble. They were not willing to sacrifice their holidays, not willing to sacrifice their lifestyle for the sake of the virus. Look at China, on the other hand. China has, with the recent economic figures, recorded economic growth of over 4%, actually close to 5% over the last quarter. Completely different from the picture that we see in the U.S. economy and the economies of any other country for that matter. Just about the only country in the world to record significant economic growth. And it is the second largest economy in the world because of the very strict measures that were taken. Now, that notwithstanding, from where we are here in Ghana or in Africa, it is plausible to suggest that we are amenable to a second wave. This is possible. But this will largely depend on the kind of actions that we take. Let me start by talking about some of the things we've done in terms of easing the things. You can start with looking at how we allowed weddings and funerals to go on. Many of us were concerned that these measures would lead to a rebound. We didn't see anything significant. Then we went on, have the hotels open, the bars and the nightclubs open, the churches opened up a bit more, the mosques opened up a bit more. Then we have the airport reopening, and we still did not see any significant change in our fortunes. Now we hear about football also coming back. Of course, with what we're seeing, it's very difficult to argue that football should not come back. But my question would always be, what is marginal change in risk that is posed by the changes that we make? It may be more of an academic question, but still a very important question. How far can you push the limits? Is there a certain point beyond when you cross, then everything just goes out of hand? So, well, we should continue what we're doing, the very cautious, stepwise approach, so that stepping back doesn't become too difficult. If you accelerate too fast, then stepping back becomes very difficult. You need to decelerate before stepping back. So I would really urge, I think just like the president did, a lot of caution in all our steps as we seek to ease things and make things better for people. Really keep on looking behind, keep on doing it slowly rather than doing it quickly just because things are looking good.
All right.
And hopefully, as the president himself said, by the grace of God, things should be better.
All right, Doc, is there any time frame that has been determined in terms of lifting restrictions and seeing the impact of those decisions in studying the Europe and America's example?
No, you asked a great question, and I can tell you that this has been studied deeply, and it will not be till the first week in November when the first very comprehensive studies of the actual impact of lockdowns in various countries on the spread of the disease will be released. But I can tell you from work that I did with very good colleagues here in Ghana at my center here at the KNUST, and thankfully in collaboration with the Ghana Health Service, who provided us with some of the data and information we needed, showing clearly how our reproductive number, the proverbial reproductive number, decreased sharply during the first 2 weeks of our lockdown, and how it even went further when certain measures were put in place, how it actually went up a little bit, although not too significantly, when we eased the restrictions. So it's very clear these kinds of things work. But the question is when to do them, how long to do them for. Where we are right now is good. But what I was saying was that we need to keep our eyes on the ball so that if we need to step back, we can do so with minimal disruption.
You spoke a bit about football. Let me just wrap up our conversation with that. The president announced that local football activities will resume in 2 weeks. Just over the weekend, Jordan Ayew announced that he had tested positive for COVID, and he apparently is the 6th player from the Black Stars who's recorded positive for coronavirus. Shouldn't this have maybe made us pull our brakes a bit on allowing the resumption of football activities?
No, I think it's a great question you're asking again, but let me take you a bit further on what the reporter said. Jordan himself mentioned that he was totally asymptomatic and was fine. So how do we know he tested positive for COVID? Well, how do we know he's COVID positive? Because he tested for it. And this is exactly my point, that if it wasn't that because of the nature of his work, he had to be tested, this would have gone totally undetected. He would have just been fine, playing his football, and all would have been all right. In the same way, one could argue, and this is why I pointed out earlier, that we can argue that our hospitalization rates and death rates are great, but the rate of spread is very difficult to put a finger on it because we're not really looking out for that. But again, one would say, who really cares? If there are no hospitalizations, people are not dying, it's fine that that virus be there. So using him testing positive alone as an index of risk is not accurate enough. It just tells you that this virus indeed spreads when people gather and make contact and spend time together. This is just the facts of the matter. And so this is why I would always recommend that while we're happy about our low hospitalization and low death rates, if we could set up some sentinel sites for researchers to keep on monitoring the spread of the disease, irrespective of its impact on hospitalization and death, this
I spoke earlier to Dr. Amuesi on the impact of COVID-19 and the figures we are currently recording and what Ghana's case really is. You're watching News Desk with me, BENNEH Abubedulan. So coming up shortly, Darryl Kwao brings us business. This time we're focusing on the free trade agreement. Do stand by for details.
In other news, government exceeded its treasury bill sale target for the third week running, showing some investor interest in the economy. The Bank of Ghana sold bids worth 793.9 million cedis of short-term securities, including the one-year note, on behalf of government. Charles Nixon Yabua has more on the trading results.
For this auctioning was 733 million cedis, meaning the government exceeded its target by 60.9 million cedis. This is compared to the previous week's 876 million cedis target, which government surpassed by 43 million cedis. From the trading figures, the interest charge on the government instruments appears to have remained steady or coming down, albeit marginally. For instance, yield on the 91-day treasury bill remained unchanged, but the interest on the 6-month bill fell by 0.03%. In the month of August, investors were demanding more yield when they were actually moving into other risk-free instruments that were giving them higher interest than the government treasuries. Indeed, data had indicated that the government treasury securities were priced at a rate of about 13.97% in the larger part of the second quarter of this year. Last month, Monetary Policy Committee report stated that interest rates on the money market saw mixed developments as rates on short to medium-term instruments eased, but generally tightened at the longer end in August this year.
Now, the second mini clinic of the JoyNews ECOBANK Habitat Fair has seen patrons informed and educated on all the secrets of home acquisition and financing. Experts also offered unbelievable discounts. Charles Aite was at the West Hills Mall over the weekend.
It's very interesting, the new innovations that they also have for customers in the wake of COVID-19. This is where you wash your hand, and they say this is part of the strategies to attract customers. Let's move on to Superlock Technologies. They're also going to be helping us with the products that they have. They specialize in doors. How has the entire exhibition been so far?
It has been awesome. It has helped us a lot. We've gotten a lot of clients who have shown interest in our products, so it has been awesome.
How affordable are your products?
I wouldn't say they are affordable. They are quality.
They are quality?
Yes.
I see this door here. Is it made from like natural wood or something?
No, it's not wood. It's galvanized steel.
Galvanized steel?
Yes. Okay. That has been covered with PVC finishing.
Okay. One interesting stand is that of the Planned City Extension, where we are learning about the rent-to-own strategy if you want to acquire a home for yourself. You could see patrons already being attended to, giving information on what exactly they need to be a part of this entire project. I just want to interrupt shortly. You're welcome to JoyNews. How has the entire scene been like for you so far?
Yeah, it was great, and we are having customers come in. Potential customers come in, and then they are showing interest. So this is a good opportunity for everyone to have the opportunity to get their own house over a period of time. We say that if you register with us, you make a payment of 499 Ghana cedis. That means
499 cedis.
Yes, please. Okay. And then you make an initial deposit of 3,000, and then we have a threshold up to 25 years. If you choose the site that we are going to build for you, you choose the type of property that you want, then we start building for you. But then, because the building has to take some time, we say that if you make 20% of the total cost of the property that you've chosen, then of course we would give you the keys to the house. Then you come inside and then continue making the payments in bits until you have exhausted your exactly.
So these gentlemen on the seat here are your patrons. They are looking through the stuff. Gentlemen, sorry to interrupt shortly, but how convinced are you so far?
Can you please, How convinced are you? So far, she's now trying to explain things to us. But I think it's a good initiative, and I hope it runs for a very long time.
And that's it for business. Sports is up next.